Hello, good to be with you again today as we do our daily reflection, and the YouVersion Bible app is where we get these verses. Today's verse to reflect on is Proverbs chapter 16 verse 3, and it says, "Commit to the Lord whatever you do and he will establish your plans." Very well known Bible verse, this one.
And it's got a few different variations on it at different times, but yeah, really good one, and makes me think, Jenny, when we were having discussions about getting married, and we're obviously followers of Jesus then, but a commitment to say, well, actually, I want to live my life continuing to follow Jesus, whatever that might mean. And that ended up with some really interesting choices, like not to buy a house initially, where a lot of our peers, that was the first thing you did when you got married, was go and establish yourself with a house, where we said, no, we want to do whatever it is that God wants us to do. And that has led us on sometimes a bit of a radical or different path, although we probably look pretty old and staid these days.
Yeah, well, we made choices based on other things, putting God's kingdom first, and not necessarily going for the big bucks, but putting ourselves forward as disciples in a different sort of way to the way that most of our friends were doing at the time.
But it's an interesting verse, because things don't always work out the way you want them to, or the way you planned, or the way you thought. And so it says God will establish your plans. Well, there's some plans that we thought that we had in mind but haven't really worked out. So there is a little bit of nuance to this, I think. But I'm sure, as I reflect on our lives, and I think you would too, Jenny, that when we haven't listened to God, there have been consequences, and when we've tried to do it by ourselves, there's been consequences. And so there is a very strong encouragement to commit to God, whatever you do, to allow him to massage and mould what even your thoughts are. It's not just, God, I want a new red Ferrari and I'm committing it to you, so please establish those plans. It's got a bit more depth than all that.
So you mentioned that there were times when we hadn't listened to God. So what's one of those times? Just putting you on the spot, Stephen.
I don't know.
Because I would have thought, honestly, in our marriage, whenever we've made decisions to do something, we have come before God and said, okay, what do we want to do?
I think it's more in retrospect you realise it. I'm sure that's true, but I think there are times where we think, for example, taking on 36 Media, that was a company that oversaw it on Being magazine. And I would say in retrospect, while it was a sense of God's call to do it, and we prayed and prayed our way through it, in retrospect there were things to do with my sense of inadequacy and a whole lot of other issues that meant we attempted to do a lot of that by ourselves without asking for people's help or God's help in ways maybe that we hadn't really thought of at the time. So I think there are consequences where we haven't really listened well. It's not that we didn't want to, it's just other things got in the way.
Yeah, so our own foibles and our own disappointments and difficulties and hard things that happen when we're growing up and decisions we make it difficult sometimes to listen to what God's saying. But that doesn't stop you from committing those things, your life, to your decisions, to what God's asking you to do.
And God is gracious.
Well, that's true.
We just look at our lives now and think of the incredible blessings that God's given us with our children, with where we live. And, I can look out over the window just now and see the Derwent River and the water. And there is so much to be thankful for God, that as we have committed our way to God, God has blessed us amazingly and incredibly, even if it hasn't worked out the way we planned, and even if at times we haven't really listened as well as we might have.
Yeah, God's amazingly forgiving and gracious, and he has established our plans in ways we never would have expected. We never thought we were going to live in Tasmania. That was sort of out there. And here we are. We've been here for 17 years now. So it's been an unexpected part of our journey.
So whatever it is that in front of you, the encouragement is committed to God. And while it might not go the way you think, God will bless you in it, no doubt.